and today I want to talk about my journey so far with getting involved in activism and my experience with helping organize my very first protest, and also how I've been navigating being a good white ally and not veering into white saviorism. So some background information about me is I've always been very passionate about social justice, and I always thought that the people that were involved in going into protests and holding up the signs and the speakers at protests and other events were just always so powerful. You know, when I would see these pictures in history books, or I would see pictures of people on social media, and I always wanted to be that type of person, right? However, I wasn't being that, and I was never as involved as I should be for two reasons. One, I just didn't know about when the protests were. I would see them after the fact, and I would be like, oh my God, I would have went to this, but I just didn't know about it, right? Or two, I just didn't have anybody to go with. Currently, as I'm making this video, there is a genocide happening in Palestine right now. So there was a pro-Palestine protest happening in Newark. I live in New Jersey, right? I asked 3 different people if they would go with me, and they all said no, okay? So then I'm like, well, I don't want to go by myself. I'm scared to go by myself. So I didn't go. And then I really regretted the fact that I didn't go. And I thought back to how in 2020, there was literally a Black Lives Matter protest in my town. And I didn't go to it because I didn't have anybody to go with, and I was afraid to go by myself. And I just feel like in 2020, that was just a big moment in history, and now I have to live with that for the rest of my life, that I didn't go to a protest because I was scared to go by myself. And now, again, this is another big moment in history, and I just realized that I cannot wait around for people to get involved with me, because then I'm going to be waiting forever, and I'm never going to go to a protest ever. Because it's like, how do I meet somebody that likes going to protests? You go to a protest, and then you become friends with somebody, and then you can go to more protests with them. It's just like anything in life. And so this year, I've really been, this past year, you know, building up my confidence, overcoming my social anxiety, and just doing things by myself. And so I've been getting more comfortable going to things by myself, right? Just specifically with the protest, I wasn't sure if it was safe to go by yourself or not. So I made a TikTok video asking people. And so somebody said, you know, it really depends. You know, if it is actually a peaceful protest, then it's okay. But if things escalate, people are enticing violence, and all of a sudden the police are going crazy and they're tear gassing people, and then people are getting arrested, you know, then that becomes like unsafe to go by yourself, because I'm reading online, like, then you need people to help you get the tear gas out of your eyes, right? And so I just read these things online, and then, you know, obviously it's like situational, but sometimes with my all or nothing thinking, like, I just don't know. So I went to a protest in my town for trans rights last year, and there was like 20 people at the protest, right? I'm reading online, like, you can't have tattoos. And this was in the summer. So I have like tattoos on my arms. So I have Band-Aids all on my arms because I was covering up my tattoos. I literally look like I'm covering up like self-harm. And I was wearing all black. And at the time I was bald. But then I put on a wig because I was like, well, I don't want to be bald in the crowd. Then the police are going to catch me, right? And so then I put on a wig, which basically made me just look like myself before I went bald. It was literally so stupid and so ridiculous, but I didn't know what to do, okay? So anyways, then a protest comes up again in New Brunswick. And because of how I deeply regretted the fact that I didn't go to the Black Lives Matter protest, I'm like, I don't want to feel that way again, and I know that I have to get involved, and I can't wait around for people. So I didn't ask anybody, and I just went to the protest. And so it was peaceful. There was only like 20 people there. And so after this experience of going to this protest and the protest in my town, I felt as though I was comfortable and knew how protest worked, how small protest worked, okay? So I was like, I'm ready to help organize my own protest in my town, right? So I live in like a predominantly white area, so I kind of figured that not many people were going to go to this protest in my town. So I was like, I can have a small protest in my town since I'm familiar with how they work, and, you know, build up some confidence, and then eventually I can help organize a bigger protest, right? When abortion rights protests were happening, I see online that you can just organize a protest in your area if there's not one to go to, right? Because at that time, I didn't know when the protests were. I saw them after the fact. So I'm like, at that point in my life, I'm like, well, that's way too anxiety provoking. There's no way I'm going to organize a protest. Like, that's too much, right? But so then this year, since I've really, like I said, been overcoming my anxiety, I thought that I was ready. So then I ended up getting in touch with the Palestinian girl in my home who grew up in my hometown. So we organized the protest together, and this caused a lot of problems with my family due to how this specific thing, like the Zionists are really crazy and ridiculous, and people are losing their jobs over speaking out about genocide and what's going on in Palestine. And so my family was just scared that my actions were going to cause everyone in the family to lose their jobs, and then we were all going to become homeless, and like they were just making it to be a big thing. But I wasn't afraid of that, so I wanted to have the event. And so obviously people have fears of speaking out about what's going on in Palestine because they don't want to get fired from their job. But the thing is, if everybody speaks out, if everybody goes to a protest, if everybody posts on their story, what are they going to do? Fire every single person in the world? Then who's going to work? And they obviously need people to work, right? So that's why when you speak out, you give other people the courage to speak out. And when you speak out, you make other people feel like, oh, okay, it is safe to speak out. So I'm going to make a video as well and say something about this. So we cannot let these people silence us out of fear, because when we all speak out, then it becomes like normal behavior and nothing's going to happen because, like I said, every single person's going to get fired. I don't think so. Another reason why I was kind of afraid to get involved was because obviously I'm white. And so again, like with my all or nothing thinking, I was kind of thinking like, it's just me posting anything on social media, performative activism, is me getting involved in any way automatically me trying to be a white savior. And so obviously there is a middle ground. So I tried to look up some information about that. And so I saw that, like, if you want to be a good white ally, you have to center the voices of the people that are personally affected by this, and you can't act like you know more than the people that are personally affected, and you can't, talk over the people that are personally affected and, make it all about you, right? And so there was a girl at my job whose family lives in the West Bank. So when I decided that I wanted to help organize a protest, I asked her if she wanted to help out, because I was thinking that I was going to say like some stuff and then being like, we know the truth, and then go into the history about what has been happening in Palestine like since 1948. And so I didn't want to say that, as a white person not personally affected. So I thought I would ask her to go ahead and give the history, right? And so she said that she wanted to be involved. So then after I had one person on board with me, I then messaged someone on Instagram that I knew from college who was more personally affected by this. And I just asked her if she wanted to come to the event, because I didn't know if I should say like, do you want to help organize it? Because I didn't want to, have her be doing all of the labor, right? That's another thing that people say, that white people will, go to these people that are personally affected, and then they want them to do all this like emotional labor and all this stuff for them. So I wanted her to be involved in some way, but I didn't want it to be like I'm forcing her to be involved kind of thing. But anyways, she then says, oh, there's actually a Palestinian girl that lives in that town, so let me give you her information. So then I reached out to her, and so she had told me that she had actually wanted to do an event in our town, but she was scared to because of the Zionists that are in our town. So I basically then gave her the encouragement to follow through with the event that she had already wanted to do, but she was just scared to, right? So since I was organizing the protest with a Palestinian girl, I just did whatever she wanted to do. So the setup of the event was she spoke, her brother spoke, her dad spoke, her friend, a black man from Black Lives Matter, spoke, and then I spoke at the very end. So my original idea was for us to be chanting around the park and then go to the Starbucks in our town, do some chanting about Starbucks, the boycott happening in Starbucks, then come back to the park, and then like we can speak and then invite some other people up to speak, right? And so she didn't want to do that because she thought that was more like New York City vibes and not the vibes of our town. So she wanted this to be more of a peaceful gathering, and she wanted to read poetry and having it be an opportunity to mourn the Palestinian lives that the Israeli government unalived, but to also be hopeful that a ceasefire can happen. So I said, okay, we can do it that way, right? And so then, unfortunately, there were counter-protesters. We did our best to not let the counter-protesters be aware of the event, because I wanted to, post this in our town's Facebook group. She said not to do that, so then I didn't. But unfortunately, we both just posted the flyer on our own Instagram pages, and then unfortunately, somebody saw that and then posted it in our town's Facebook group. It then did get deleted, but then somebody else posted it in a a town over from us Facebook group. So then Zionists became aware of it, not because of us, but because of other people, right? And so when the protest actually happened, there were counter-protesters who were being wildly disrespectful, and one of them was enticing violence because the police were there, so they put a barrier between us, just like the yellow caution tape. She was telling people not to engage with the counter-protesters and to just ignore them. While we're having this event, there's literally posters all around of the hostages, the Israeli hostages, We didn't touch them. We didn't take the posters down, She didn't want us to engage with them. I didn't engage with any of the counter-protesters, but obviously you can't control everybody. So some people were kind of engaging with them. And so this one woman, she had the sign up kind of near them, I guess, and then the one guy punches the sign, and she was holding it, I think, in front of her face. So he punched the sign, and then it hit her nose, and then she was bleeding. And he did get arrested. I think she might press further charges against him. But I would say besides this, I would say overall it was a positive experience for me as my first protest that I helped organize. I asked her thoughts, and she said that she was happy we went through with the event. I did feel bad because of the fact that the counter-protesters were being very disrespectful, and they all had their own megaphones, and they were talking over her as she's trying to give her personal experiences, talking over her dad. And I didn't hear this at the time, but she had said that one of the counter-protesters told her dad that the Nakba wasn't real. So they were just being very invalidating, and so I felt it was a little bit hard on her parents. But at the same time, I think that they were also happy that we had the event, and we did have more supporters on our side. There was 60 people who supported Palestine, and then there was 20 counter-protesters, and then they left towards the end. So since I spoke at the very end, luckily for me, the counter-protesters had left, because I was getting nervous. That would be very stressful for me to speak while all these people are yelling at you with their megaphones. So I'm sure it was very stressful for everybody else that spoke. So because of the fact that there were counter-protesters talking over her and her family, trying to silence them, her friend did start some chanting of saying, "Free, free Palestine," in between parts of her speech and in between the different poems that she read and just in between the different speakers. So I know in the beginning I said that she didn't want to do any chanting. I think that was because in our mind it was supposed to be very peaceful, just us and the supporters. But since there were counter-protesters being disrespectful, talking over them, I think then she realized that it was important to do the chanting. So we did do it, and I thought in that sense it was powerful that we were all able to do the chanting to show the Zionist counter-protesters that we will not be silenced. And so like I said before, how do you make friends with people that like going to a protest? You go to a protest and that's how you make friends. I think it's easier to make friends at a smaller gathering than it is when you go to a really big protest. So the one in New Brunswick, that I said was only 20 people, I was able to talk to some other people there, right? Then the next week I went to a protest in New York City, which was much bigger, and I didn't talk to anybody there. Maybe I could have, but I just didn't. I just feel like it's easier to talk to people more when it's a smaller event, because I did see online that you gotta be careful if it's so big that these random people, you never know if one of them's secretly the police. I don't want to encourage paranoia and thinking like that, because I do like to trust that people are good and the people that you're gonna meet are good people, right? But I just didn't talk to anybody when I went to that. But so after having this event with her, she made a WhatsApp group chat of us and plus the other people that were at the event. Not everybody, probably I don't know, 7 people maybe in the group. But so they've been posting about more things. So now, because of getting involved by myself, I'm now in a group with other people. So now if I want to get involved more, I can with friends instead of just it being by myself. So that's why it is good to just go out there, get out of your comfort zone and go by yourself, because that is how you're going to make friends with people that also care about the same things as you. So before organizing the protest, it did feel like it was going to be a lot of responsibility, but it honestly wasn't that bad. So if you feel called to organize a protest, you should just do it. I do think it's good to get one other person to help you, and obviously it's going to depend on how big of an event this is going to be. So obviously in my mind at first, I thought it was going to be like 30 people. Then I was getting delusional, thinking it was going to be like 400 people, but that didn't happen. It was 60 people. But so even if it's a small turnout, it is still good and it is still important to show that you care and to use your voice. And so when I wanted to organize some type of protest, it didn't have to be in my town, because I was thinking that like not everybody in my town is a supporter of Palestine. But so when I asked my one coworker originally, like, she said, no, like, I think it can be good to do it in this town, because it is good to do it in towns that people don't agree with, just to show that, we're not going to be silenced kind of thing. My coworker ended up not doing it because her boyfriend thought it was going to endanger the family. So that's why it was good that I then got in touch with this Palestinian girl, right? And so we did have a little bit of problems with getting a permit, because nobody wanted to get the permit. I would have gotten it, but my family just was scared and paranoid, and they didn't want me to get it. And she couldn't get it because it was going to endanger her family, and somebody else was going to get it. But then the thing was, you had to get liability insurance and all this stuff. So we didn't get the permit, but good thing we didn't get in trouble. But I did alert the police, because I went down to the police station because I was going to secretly get the permit behind my parents' wishes. So I gave them my information, like my name, phone number, my address, and because I was going to secretly get the permit. But then they told me that I had to get the permit online after I already gave them my information, right, and alerted them about the event. Then the police called me the next day. I didn't answer them because I was on the train going to the New York City protest. Then the next time they called me, I was sleeping, and I was going to call them back. But then they started ringing the doorbell and knocking on my door, and they showed up at my house. Then I started getting scared. Me and my mom went outside, and so he was saying like he just wanted to get information about how many people we thought were going to be at the event, right? So then I told him whatever, and he was asking me if we had got the permit. I said that I didn't get the permit. So then I was getting paranoid that I basically turned myself into the police, and I was afraid I was going to get arrested. So I asked him if I was going to get arrested, and he said no. He said the worst that would happen is you get a fine for not having a permit, but he thought that probably wouldn't happen, right? But then my mom's paranoid that, like, you can't trust the police, obviously, and I don't trust the police either. But, like, then my mom was like, well, you might get a fine, right? And so I was really scared about that. So then, like, at one hand, I wanted to have a big turnout. But then because of not getting the permit and because I gave the police my information, then I was kind of like, well, now I don't really want that many people to come to the event because I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't want to go to jail or have to pay a huge fine, right? Because I don't have enough money to be paying $1,000 fine, however much money it was going to be. If it was going to be $100, whatever. But my mom is so crazy. She's like, it's going to be $5,000. I'm like, is that actually true, or you made that number up? And then she said that she made that number up. So anyways, we didn't get fined, and everything was awesome, and it was amazing. For the most part, okay, obviously there were counter-protesters and everything. It was supposed to be a really beautiful experience, but obviously the counter-protesters tried to ruin it. So at first the police were saying that you need a permit if you're going to be using megaphones, because I'm reading online that you don't need a permit if you're going to gather in the park, or you're just going to be chanting on the sidewalks, like not blocking pedestrians, not blocking traffic and all that stuff. But I guess it depends on the town, because they said that having the megaphones does go against town ordinance. So we were a little bit nervous about that, but we did use the megaphones, and good thing we had the megaphones, because all of these counter protesters had megaphones, and if we didn't have them, then how were we going to be able to talk over them, because they were screaming? So nothing bad happened in terms of nobody got arrested and nobody got fined. Obviously, this one woman did get injured because of counter protesters, but nothing in terms of the police, nothing bad in terms of the police happened. So that was good. So that's why I do think if you feel called to get involved, you should just do it, because for the most part, it will be a positive experience for you. So going back to what I said in the beginning about how I had these fears of people saying that, like, I was a performative activism and I'm like a white savior, right? But I had to tell myself, because, a lot of those fears with that is like just paranoia. So I had to just tell myself, like, let people tell you that you are being a performative activist, let people tell you that you're being a white savior, right? If that happens, then you can think about what can I do differently, right? But if you know in your heart that you care about these things and it's true and you're doing these things just out of the kindness of your heart and because you care, then nobody's probably going to say that you're being a performative activist or you're being a white savior, right? So, and this was about me posting some videos in support of Palestine on my TikTok account. This happened in October 7th. It all, seemed to have started, right? Obviously, these things have been going on since 1948. But anyways, I had felt called to post something once the Israeli government started, bombing the innocent Palestinian civilians. But I was nervous and I was scared. Part of the reason being, I'm not educated enough on this topic. I need to continue to learn more, right? So this stuff has been going on for a month, right? And I'm seeing some people, creators online saying well, why should I say anything about this? I'm not the most educated person. I shouldn't have to talk about this. It should be, these people that are most personally affected by this. And so I think being a good white ally is just showing Palestinians that they are not fighting alone, or whichever oppressed group it is. There's also a genocide happening in Sudan, so showing them that they're not fighting alone. And the kids in Congo are being treated like slaves right now, so to show them that they are not fighting alone. I think white saviorism is when you start to say things like, us white people need to be the voice of the Palestinians, and we need to be the voice of the Congolese people and the people in Sudan, right? That kind of thing. And in Gaza specifically, they had turned off all of the power, so the people there can't communicate with us. So there are people saying that we need to be their voice. However, there are Palestinians living in the USA. Like I said, I helped organize the protest with the Palestinian girl and her family. So it doesn't make sense for me to say I need to be Palestinians' voice because they cut off the power when there are other Palestinian people in the USA. And there are also Congolese people living in the USA. I saw a woman making a TikTok about it and how she has been fighting for this and for justice for years, right? So just because these people are in different countries doesn't mean that white people need to say we're being their voice, because whichever group it is, there are some people in the USA from that demographic who should always be the center and the main speakers, but we can just be there also for moral support and be fighting with them instead of being the main fighter. So if you want to help Palestinians, you can boycott Starbucks, McDonald's, and Disney Plus. These are the three main companies that we're boycotting because they fund genocide. There is a longer list you can look up, and from the longer list, I'm also boycotting Nike and Victoria's Secret because of the fact that I wasn't even going to Starbucks or McDonald's, so me boycotting doesn't really do anything. So that's why I added those other two brands. And if you want to support everybody in Congo right now, then you can boycott electronics. So if your phone were to break, you can get a refurbished phone, or there's also a brand called Fair Phone, and these phones are made in fair working conditions and not having the people in Congo working like slaves to make your phones. But so I see these people saying I can't say anything because I'm not educated enough on this topic. And I feel for the most part, whatever it is, you don't really need to know that much about it to know that it is wrong. Specifically with this, I saw one 5-minute video, and that was enough to show me that what is going on in Palestine is wrong, right? Of course, I didn't stop there, and I did keep educating myself, and I still am educating myself now, But it just goes to show that you don't need to know everything to know that something is wrong and to start speaking up. And I thought to myself about how I post videos of myself going to the gym, and I'm not a personal trainer. I'm not a professional at the gym. I literally post videos of myself having bad form. If I'm allowed to post about my gym journey and how this is where I'm at right now in the gym, I'm not perfect, but that's okay, right? Then I should be allowed to talk about something that actually matters without being 100% educated. And specifically with this, what's happening in Palestine, as an outsider, you're not going to become 100% educated no matter what it is, as an outsider, I really do feel like you can't be 100% educated on it. You can do your best and educate yourself the most that you can, but you can't think, I'm not ready to talk about this because I need to keep educating myself, because that's like infinity education. There's always going to be more stuff to learn. You're never going to be 100% educated as an outsider. That's why you just have to say to yourself, this is what I know, and from what I know that this is wrong. Because like I said, I saw that 5-minute video and I said, oh wow, this is wrong. And then the more I kept learning more information and the more videos I watched about it, I thought to myself, wow, this is really wrong, and this is actually very sad. And so when I decided to help organize the protest, I was having like arguments about this with my family due to the Zionists, and my mom's like, well, it would be different if this was like an abortion protest or, like Black Lives Matter protest, because I'm not sure for sure. I'm not positive about this, but I'm not sure if people were losing their jobs for going to those types of protests. But I know lots of people are losing their jobs because of this. And one of the things that Zionists and the Israeli government say is like, if you don't agree with us, you're anti-Semitic. And obviously nobody wants to be called anti-Semitic. I'll say right now, I support Jews. I've always had Jewish friends. I still have Jewish friends now. There was literally Jewish people at the protest. Everyone in their speech said that they support Jewish people, just not the Israeli government, right? But so specifically because of the Zionists and I guess how powerful they can be and how they can have people to lose their jobs, because some people did lose their jobs, this was just a fear for my family, and it really just caused arguments between us. But the more I learned about what was going on and the more information came out about what was happening in Gaza, because especially I saw this post that then the Israeli government had a missile that they sent through a hospital that literally slices people's bodies. And it was just the more information that was coming out, I knew that I had to go through with this event, and it had to be done, and we had to show what was happening and show our support, and we just couldn't be silenced. So even though this was causing problems with me and my family, I knew that it had to be done, and I knew that I couldn't be silenced due to the horrific things that I was hearing. And this protest was a few days ago, and I've been hearing more and more terrible things since then. So I'm assuming that the majority of people watching this are white because of the fact that we have the privilege to sit back and not get involved with things because of being white, and these things don't really affect us and our lives aren't necessarily going to change. As a black woman, if you don't get involved in Black Lives Matter issues, obviously that affects you, so you're more inclined to get involved. Or as a Palestinian woman, obviously what's happening in Palestine right now affects you more personally, so you feel more inclined to get involved, right? And so I'm just assuming that white people are watching this and now you want to make the choice to get involved more, which is amazing. And so I've been seeing people say how come as feminists we need to talk about every single thing that happens in the world and no other group has to do this? And that's because feminism intersects with everything, right? Because of the fact that there are Palestinian women in Gaza right now. And I've just been hearing about terrible things that are going on right now to the women in Gaza. So I saw a post the other day that said women in Gaza right now who are pregnant have 3 options. They can either take their baby out of the incubator and leave with the baby and then the baby dies, or they can leave the baby in the incubator and then leave, and then they're going to die of heartache for leaving their child behind, right? Or she can sit by the incubator and then they both die. And this is because of all the bombings that are happening. And so I guess wherever the area is, it's just not safe. And so women are just having to give birth in really unsafe, inhumane living conditions. And if they have to get a C-section, they are getting C-sections without anesthesia and just giving the birth in general without the epidural and all this other medicine that we have the privilege of having in the USA, right? And as feminists, we are supposed to be supporting all women and supporting mothers and fighting for women's rights, right? And so it's just not right to only focus on women's issues that involve white people, specifically abortion rights or how women still aren't paid the same as men, or stuff about the beauty standards and how women are expected to look so beautiful and pretty all the time. We also have to be focusing on issues that affect women that aren't white, right? And so that's why people say like white feminism is just like when people say, oh, I'm a feminist, but then we're only focusing on issues that affect white people. So that's why, like, if I want to call myself a feminist, and if you want to call yourself a feminist also, then we have to be focusing on all women in the world and not just women that look like us and not just issues that affect us personally. And obviously there are Palestinian girls in Gaza who are living in unsafe living conditions, and obviously we want to support young girls all around the world. So that is why this is a feminist issue. And I've just been seeing, like, there's this one creator on YouTube that I saw the other day, and she's like making videos like about how the double standards in terms of men, and it was just like about how like men can't cry if men get essayed, people don't believe them, and all this stuff. Just like talking about like men's issues, and then people in the comments are like, this is what a real feminist is. Meanwhile, this person never said anything about what was happening in Gaza. So I commented like, why don't you talk about how there's a genocide going on in Gaza right now instead of focusing on men's issues that men literally created for themselves? And obviously what is happening in Congo right now is a feminist issue because I saw a video of a 4-year-old girl mining in the fields just so that we can have phones. That's absolutely ridiculous. And if we want to say that we care about all young girls, then we also have to care about the young girls in Congo that are being treated like slaves right now. That is no way to live. Children should be playing. They should not be working. But then, of course, as white women, like, there's a certain way to go about getting involved. And that's why I'm still learning about this. Like, I'm not trying to act like I know everything. But just from what I've read is basically, like, we have to make sure that we are centering the voices of whichever group of people it is. So, you know, if you're going to help organize a Black Lives Matter protest, you know, you have to listen to what the Black women want and what the Black men want. You know, you can't think that you know more than them and that you know what the answers are. You have to really center their voices and do what they want to do and listen to the things that they need. Because I think some people say that, like, us white people, we think that we know more than the people affected, and we think like, oh, I'm going to help by doing this, but then whatever your thing is, it's like not helpful. So you have to see what it is that they want from you as help and then do that. So that's why I'm really happy that I was able to get in touch with the Palestinian girl. So then obviously I was able to help center her voice, and then that's why her and her family did most of the talking, and then I just talked at the very end, and then I just did whatever she wanted to do because, like I said, like, my ideas for the protest, she then didn't approve of them. So, and I wasn't like arguing with her like, no, we have to do this my way. I said, all right, that's fine. Like, we'll do it how you want to do it, right? And so then we did it, and I think it was a good experience for me with, you know, learning how to be a good feminist and caring about, you know, all women and not just white people, and learning how to center the women that are personally affected by this. So obviously it's a learning experience, so do your best. Obviously, if you make some mistakes along the way and maybe somebody calls you performative, like, then you can just learn from that experience. Don't get discouraged and don't give up, and you can just see how you can do better. And you can also do further research about this. I'm sure other women, like Black women or Palestinian women, brown women, other women that are personally affected by more personally affected by social justice issues, I'm sure they have videos that you can watch on how to be a good ally for whatever specific thing it is. So that's what I encourage you to do also. So in terms of overcoming my fears of public speaking, obviously as an organizer, you are expected to give some type of speech at the event, right? And I did want to give a speech, and I had wrote a speech, but then parts of me wanted to be like the day of, oh, on second thought, I actually don't want to read this speech because of my fears. But so something that I did to help me was I told myself that I was doing this for exposure therapy and social mishap exposures. So I was just getting low self-esteem that my speech was terrible and my speech was bad, and like, you know, so I say to myself, this is just social mishap exposures. I'm giving a terrible speech on purpose for social mishap exposure therapy. And this actually helped me to feel like it wasn't real, and it helped me to feel less anxious. And so then I did give the speech. And in the past, anytime when I would do public speaking, like when I would have to for school, you know, give a presentation, I had to take a public speaking class because everyone needed to take it. in college, I usually will be shaking a little bit. It's usually not noticeable to the audience, but I notice it. And I actually, so I expected for that to happen. But that didn't happen. I actually wasn't shaking at all. I printed out my speech on a piece of paper. So I wasn't really making eye contact with the audience that much. But I tried to make eye contact a little bit. So if the next protest I organize and I give a speech at, I'll try to make more eye contact with the other protesters that came out to support. And so specifically, this is like, it's obviously different because I had to tell myself that like my fears aren't really justified, I guess, because people are dying and like I'm scared to give a speech. Meanwhile, people are scared that they're going to die. It just really puts things into perspective. Like the same thing when I was afraid to start posting about this stuff on social media. I was scared to, but I had to tell myself like, I'm scared to post a video, but people are scared that they're going to die. They're scared their families are going to die. Like, it really just puts things into perspective that your fears just are nowhere equal to the fears that these people are having. And it just helped me to really push myself to make the videos, even though I was scared to, have the protest, even though I was scared to, And you just have to realize that you have to do things scared, which is something that I have been realizing lately. Like I said, like when the abortion rights were happening, that's obviously way more personal to me as somebody that actually had an abortion, right? If I wasn't able to get that, like that would have really been bad for me, so that was something that was more personal to me. But at that time in my life, I was afraid to organize a protest. So if you feel called to get involved, but you have social anxiety, I do advise doing the social mishap exposures, rejection therapy, because I really do feel like me doing all of these things to help me to overcome my social anxiety helped me to say like, okay, I'm actually courageous now this year and I'm going to help organize the protest. Even though this technically doesn't involve me and like if I didn't do it, my life wouldn't change whatsoever. Like posting about this stuff, like nothing about my life is necessarily going to change. Just really felt called to get involved in activism. Like I said, I've been getting the calling now for really a few years, and now this is really the first year when I really did get involved. And so if you have the calling, like it's not going to go away. And the day that I didn't go to that Newark protest, I also went to the doctor that day because I had an ear infection. And for me, I really believe in the mind-body connection. And so I believe that I had that ear infection because I wasn't listening to the calling. Because prior to that, like I was getting the calling just to make social media videos on my account about what was going on and, show my support. But I wasn't doing it out of fear. And even though I felt called to make some videos, and then I had the ear infection, and then I didn't go to the protest, and then I just knew that I had to get involved and I couldn't stay silent anymore. You have to remember that regrets are for the things you don't do. They are never for the things that you do. And like I said before, I regretted not going to the Black Lives Matter protest that was literally in my town. And it wasn't like, oh, I didn't go because I didn't care. Because I did care. I just didn't go because I didn't have anyone to go with. I feel like that's not a good reason not to go to something. And now when I have kids and I grow up and they learn about this in schools, I'm going to have to say, oh, I didn't even go to a protest. Like, that's absolutely ridiculous. And so this year I really have been learning, just in general in life, like with regretting not doing things, I realize that regrets are for the things that you don't do. So I just have to do these things, right? So I don't regret helping organize this process whatsoever. The only thing I regret is that I didn't really have the opportunity to really talk to the girl that I helped organize the protest with. So in terms of being an organizer, I guess I was late because the protest started at 11 and I didn't get there till 10:58. because I went to the library to print out my speech. The computers weren't working, so I was in there for like 20 minutes. I don't even know. Time got away from me. I need to work on my time management, obviously. But so when I got there, she's arguing with counter protesters. I tried to say hi to her, but like it was so chaotic, right? Then the event starts, and then at the end, she's talking to the other people, that came out to support, right? And I guess her friends and family. And then I invited somebody that I knew from high school who has been posting about what has been going on in Gaza. And from their reposts on Instagram, that's how I really started learning about all of this, because they reposted this video that really explains things in a way that was easy for me to understand. And then I was able to look at that account and learn more information, and I started Googling more things on my own. So it was kind of like because of them that I learned all about this stuff, and then I was like, okay, let me help and organize a protest, right? So I was talking to them after the event, and I guess like I was just felt kind of awkward for me because I didn't really know that many people there. And like social situations just, obviously they are stressful for me as a neurodivergent person. So I kind of just went to somebody that I knew and was talking with them. But she did say thank you to me at the end, and then her family said thank you to me. And, I wasn't looking for praise or anything. I'm happy that I was able to get in touch with her, because since my coworker had dropped out because her boyfriend thought it was unsafe for her to get involved, I probably wouldn't have organized the event just by myself, because like it was my first time organizing a protest, right? It was actually her first time as well. But I just do feel like it is good to have another person, as a partner. And we also had some other people also involved. But like I wouldn't have had the event by myself either. So we both like helped each other, But so I really think it was meant to be, because of how she had wanted to have the event, but then she was just afraid to. And then when I had followed her on Instagram, her following count was 2,222 followers. So I really just thought this was confirmation from the universe that I was on the right path with getting more involved in activism and making the decision to help organize the protest. And it was, in my mind, it was going to be so beautiful and as an experience. And I do think overall it was positive. But like I said, the counter protesters, they tried to ruin things. But I would say we didn't let them ruin it, because we did continue on with the event. And we did do the chanting, and we did have more supporters than them. So overall, it was good because we did not let them silence us. And yes, you definitely should be proud of yourself when you go to your first protest, or you go to any protest, right? But it's not enough just to go to one protest. It's not enough to boycott Starbucks for 1 week. We have to keep doing these things until justice is served. And I'll admit, even though part of me, after the protest I helped organize was over, I was thinking like, yay, like we did it. But it's not over yet. Justice was not served. A ceasefire did not happen yet. I mean, hopefully by the time you're watching this video, it happened. But as of this day, it did not happen. That's why I want to keep looking out for the next protest so I can go to it and continue the boycott. And in the group chat that I'm now in, they want to have a teach-in, because a lot of these people, the Zionists, they're uneducated and they just don't know what's going on. Hopefully they will change their mind. I don't know. I realized for me personally, though, when I first made a few posts about this stuff on TikTok, Instagram, I was thinking like the goal is to get people that don't agree to change their minds. But some people just are really brainwashed and they're not going to change their mind. So I think now the point is to get the people that care to care out loud, like I said, and to stop caring silently, and to take their feelings of this is wrong and to actually do some types of action steps to actually show that this is wrong, And that's how I feel like we are going to make a difference. But we do have to be patient, and we do have to keep fighting until we get justice, till we get a ceasefire, till Palestine is actually free, or, like I said, whatever it is that you want to help out and be an activist about. It's never too late to speak up. It's been a month, but it's still never too late to speak up. And I'm seeing some more people come out and say something. And so don't be like, oh no, I didn't speak up, it's too late. When I made my first video, it was in October 19th. At that point, it's been like 2 weeks, I guess, and I literally thought, it's too late to speak up. Like, I waited so long, but it wasn't too late because it's still happening, So it's never too late. The only time it will be too late is if, hopefully this doesn't happen, if like Israel gets what they want and they literally ethnically cleanse everybody from Palestine out of their homes, then that is when it is too late. But there's still a lot of people that are alive, and that's why one of my favorite quotes is, mourn the dead, but fight like hell for the living. Yes, it is very upsetting that 11,000 people were unalived, but there still are like 2 more million people, and a lot of them left. So I'm not exactly sure of the numbers, but there still are a lot of people worth fighting for. So we have to fight for the people that are alive to stay alive. And so we can't feel helpless and hopeless. And one of the things I realized is that taking action, going to the protests, calling your representatives, boycotting, taking these action steps helps you to feel less hopeless. And when everybody does these things, it does make a difference. So don't feel like, oh my God, who am I? I'm not going to change anything if I don't go to Starbucks. You will change something if everybody else also boycotts Starbucks. Because like if everybody is having thoughts of like, I'm not going to change anything, me going to a protest doesn't matter, and nobody goes to the protest, obviously nothing's going to happen. But if everyone believes I am important, me showing up as a person is important and makes a difference, then people will actually start to make a difference, right? And so another thing is like, when I went to that first protest, the trans rights protest, that was in my town. The Black Lives Matter protest was in my town. So I thought to myself, like, there were 2 protests in my town, so that means it is possible to have a protest in my town. Why isn't there a pro-Palestine protest in my town? If nobody's going to organize one, I guess it will have to be me, right? And I thought about that quote, like, if not you, who? If not now, when? If not here, where, right? And so luckily I was able to get put in touch with a Palestinian girl who's more personally affected by this, and she literally grew up in my town. As of now, she's not living in the town, but she wanted to do it in her hometown, So you never know the people that you're going to meet, You might think like, who am I as a white person? Who am I as somebody that is not personally affected by this? But you never know the people that you're going to meet that are personally affected by this, and you can just help them to get the encouragement to do the event that they already wanted to do. Like I said, she had literally said, I wanted to have an event in my hometown, but I just was scared. And so I just gave her the encouragement to just be like, no, don't be scared. We should do this and we can do it and it's going to be okay. And then we did it and it was fine and nobody got in trouble or anything. But I also want to say, don't think that you posting doesn't matter. But because of these people that posted videos about what was going on in Palestine, I was able to be exposed to the information, and then I was able to click on the account they reposted, go to the account, look for more information, say, okay, let me Google some more stuff, learn about some more stuff. And then eventually I said, you know what? This is wrong, and I'm not going to sit here and accept this, and I'm going to organize a protest. So you never know who's going to see these reposts that you have, and you never know what action steps that they're going to take because of it. Because if you don't repost these things, then people might not know about it. Your followers might not know. And because you never know, someone might see it and then say, oh my God, this is bad. Let me go to a protest. Oh my God, this is bad. Oh no, there's not a protest in my area. Let me organize a protest, right? Let me call my representatives. Oh, I didn't know there was a boycott at Starbucks. Let me start boycotting. That's why reposting is important. Even if you don't have like 1 million followers, it's still important, because I was getting this information by just people that aren't even content creators, just reposting out of the kindness of their hearts to show that this is wrong. And so that's why we all need to do our part, because every little action step matters, and you never know what other actions are going to follow from your action. So believe in yourself that you make a difference, because when we all believe we can make a difference, amazing things can happen. And one of the chants that we did, and that we also did at the New York City protests, was, "The people united will never be defeated." And that's what is so true, because there technically is more of us than there are of them, you know, the people in power. But we just really need to come together, and we all need to believe that me showing up does matter. Me posting does matter. Me boycotting does matter, and it is important because it actually is. So how I try to navigate, you know, being a good white ally and not going into becoming a white savior, right, was I thought about, like, pretending that, say I was a man going into, like, a woman's space, women's rights, abortion rights, protest, right? You know, I would say that the woman should speak first and do most of the talking, and then maybe at the end we can have the man come in and say whatever he wants to say, right? It would be kind of weird if he started it and did all the talking, and then he's introducing the woman to then come up and speak, right? So since I guess it technically was my idea to have the event, even though that's, like, not really even true, because, like I said, she wanted to have the event, she was just scared. But instead of me saying, like, I'm going to start this off and I'm going to talk first and then I'll introduce you and then you can talk, like, that's just weird, because I'm not personally affected by this. That's why she talked first and then I talked at the end. And, like, even if I think about this in terms of, like, I'm neurodivergent, like, say there was some neurodivergent event, it would just be weird if, like, a neurotypical started it off and then the neurodivergent person talked at the end, right? So you see what I'm saying? Like, you let the people that are personally affected be the center, do most of the talking, say what they want to say, and then you can come in and talk at the end to show your support and, you know, just be there for support. So hopefully I did a good job. I don't know. I'm not going to ask because I just feel like that's weird. But I think everybody was happy. So this is just the beginning of my activism journey. Now that I have the confidence to go to these protests by myself, I went to a small one and nothing bad happened. I went to a bigger one and nothing bad happened. So the next time I find out about an event in my area, I'm just going to go by myself, because I've shown myself that I don't need to wait around for other people. So I hope that you can do that too. I would say, you know, if you're really scared, start small. Go to one that you figure is going to be smaller, build up some confidence, and then you can go to a bigger event. I always believe in starting out small, right, to get some confidence and some courage. Thank you so much for listening. Please like and comment if this video was helpful for you, and please comment any other questions or any other video suggestions that you want to hear me making. Thanks. Bye.